It's you.
Okay. Oh, thank you. We are on air. And good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Burlington. Thank you for joining in. This is our 56th edition of Burlington and Beyond. In our effort to bring some of the key people, not only outside of Burlington, but especially within Burlington. With that in mind, we have a very special guest here tonight. We have the Town Administrator, Mr. John Petrin, who is going to give us a list of all the good things that are going on in Burlington. Seriously, I think you, I hope you're tuned in, and I hope you'll stay with us, because I think that you can learn a lot about Burlington, about what's going on currently in town. With me is my cohort, Adam Sinesi, who's going to join me, and we're going to be picking on Mr. Petrin tonight to, well, not really picking on.
But we might ask some questions.
We're going to ask him some questions and let him. Later on, toward the end of the show, I'd like to take a minute and tell you about some of the people that we will be having on, people who have already committed, and we're just sort of trying to work out the dates for their visits. But for the evening, for now, we would like to welcome John Petrin. I'm very happy that you're here. I'm happy that you accepted to join us.
Thank you.
And I don't know exactly where to begin. Adam and I think had mentioned that maybe you'd like to talk a little bit about yourself with regard to your history, perhaps a little bit about your schooling, your likes, your dislikes. And I would add, how do you feel about Burlington?
Sure.
And maybe a little bit about what you see in the future, if at all. Or
One question at a time.
Yeah,
slow
okay,
your
yeah,
roll,
okay.
Pat. Slow your roll.
Go ahead.
So that takes us till 10 o'clock,
Right.
right? Well, thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. Anytime we can talk about Burlington, I think that's a great thing for the community. So I guess starting at the beginning, I'm John Petrin, and as I said to you guys earlier, I was born in a foreign country, Woonsocket, Rhode Island, and I immigrated to the town of Bellingham. So I grew up in Bellingham, Mass, down on a 495 belt. And so I went to school, Stonehill College. I got my bachelor's degree. Political science was my major, and history was my minor at Stonehill. And then I received a master's in public administration from Northeastern University in Boston. So municipal government's been my life, So this month I hit 37 years of full-time service.
Good for you.
It's a good run.
In the municipal sector. And I've been a town administrator since 1985. So that's when I started as a town administrator, with a 4-year stint as an assistant superintendent of schools in there for the city of Marlborough. So I was recruited in and went there for 4 years, and then it was my wife who said, you're a town administrator. That's, you seem to be. I says, I love this job. She says, no, I see difference, and you're a town administrator. So I went back to that. So I've been in the business, for a long time, and I started in the town of Pepperell, for a couple of years, and then I was in the town of Harvard for 13 years. With the Fort Devens closure. So I was there as part of the whole Devens closure, and then the Devens community, if you've seen some of the pieces. So I was part of the team that helped develop what Devens is today. And that was a 5 to 6 year process in developing that whole piece and putting that together. So that was very interesting, very interesting times dealing with, we were 4 communities working with the state, the federal government, the Army, and it was very interesting, during that period. So then I went on to the city of Marlborough, and I was town manager in Ashland for 7 years, and I came here 5 years ago. So I've been here for 5.
So, for example, in the city of Marlborough, if that's a city, is there a mayor or?
Yeah, so it's a mayor-city council.
Okay.
So you had a mayor and 9 city councilors. And the mayor was the chairman of the school committee, as it is in many of the cities in the Commonwealth. And so I was hired by the school superintendent with the mayor at that time.
Having had, that's a lot of experience, really, wow. We're lucky to have you.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, not only as a person, but having brought all of that experience with you. You've been here in Burlington for 5 years.
Yes.
How do you feel about Burlington?
I think I love it. So Burlington's a great place. It's a community. You know, there's cities and towns out there, and there's communities, and this is a community. I keep saying that, and I think if you've heard me speak, you know, any
Yes.
place else, hopefully I show enthusiasm every time
You
I
do.
talk, you know,
You
about
do.
the town, because it's you know, it's been earned. You know, the town has earned, you know, to have that enthusiasm shown by me and everybody else who's a part of it. So it is a community. When you look at all the aspects, I mean, you go down, you can't count the amount of churches in this community. You know, from Catholic Church, Protestant, mosque, Jehovah Witnesses, the synagogue, temple.
Yeah.
So we've got everything here, and people do come together.
Yeah.
You know, as a community, and they watch for each other, and that's huge.
Do you think the location of Burlington has as much meaning as people seem to think, you know, on 128?
Absolutely. I see a big difference in the 128 belt, you know, getting closer to Boston from where, you know, I'm from, the 495 belt.
Right.
The 495 belt has more transiency to it, you know, so the communities are tougher to be communities, you know, in those
Yeah.
areas,
Yeah.
because there's more turnover. You know, when I came to Burlington, and I still hear it today, you know, someone introduces themselves to me, and it's, I was born and brought up in this town, or I've been here for 50 years. And, you know, I hear that, I don't know how many times, you know, coming in here. And people move to Burlington, they stay. You look at the housing market in this community, what's for sale. And there's really not a heck of a lot housing
Right.
stock, you know, that's
Right.
for sale compared to, you know, other places.
Yeah.
And you know, you talk about, you know, we did some interviews not too long ago, and police chief and I looked at it, and we get this young man. Yeah, my father bought the house from his father, and I'm looking to buy the house from my father. You know, and that's what you get here. So it really is, you know, a piece of old time America, you know, in that sense.
I personally, you could have been talking about me. I've been here for 54 years, and I've seen so many changes. I never really paid attention to government, and I'm really happy that I am involved to the small extent that I am, because it has helped me perhaps develop the same kind of view that you have, and that is an awareness of where we are, an appreciation for what we do have here in Burlington. The only one thing I miss, because I've always lived close to the shore, is the ocean, but it's not that far away.
Right.
You know, that's the only thing. But
That's a
other
great
than
part
that,
about New England. You can get to the mountains, you can get to the ocean, you get, you
Yeah.
know, when you live in other parts of the country, it's like, don't you miss seeing this once in a while? And, you know, it's, but here, you can travel quickly and
Yeah.
hit so much a big city. You know, you can get to the theater, you can get, you know, skiing, you can go, you know, to the ocean, you can have a boat, you know, it's.
do you think the traffic that you know, it comes up in so many different ways? I the other day I had to go to, I think I mentioned earlier, I had to go to Best Buy, and I ran into all the traffic, and I took a ride up. I hadn't been up there to look at the canyon.
Yes.
What is the canyon? And I'm a little confused. We were talking briefly about it, and Adam explained to me that you can see Millipore from the turnpike. You can see the building
Sure.
from, yeah.
Being
Okay,
built right behind the
I wasn't
Siemens
sure
building for
which
people.
which one it was, but there's a lot more activity up there than I had imagined going on. And I don't know what is the other company that's up there? Do you know, one or two companies? you
Well,
think?
Gutierrez owns the old, larger Siemens building, and it's various companies, you know, that are in there. So it's not just one company in there. So Millipore is building the new 350,000 square foot building right behind it. And then they have options to utilize some of the space in the future of the current building. So Gutierrez relocated to that building, you know, not too long ago. And there's various companies, you know, that are located in there.
Yeah. The issue of available land, I'm sure that we're all aware of it, especially in terms of the landlocked forest.
Sure.
You know, what it might have been if, I'm happy with the way the vote turned out, but Barbara Lheureux, she mentioned that there was a parcel of land off of Lexington Street on the bend. She said there's
Okay.
4 or 5 acres there, where the chicken coops were back
Yeah,
there?
so I'm not quite familiar. I've heard of that, but
Okay.
I
My-
can't
I
get
guess
into
my
details.
Since
point
you
is-
mentioned it, every time I drive down there, I look for a
Yeah.
chicken coop, by the way.
Yeah, they're set back. The only reason I mention that is because that seems to be the last remaining bit of land in Burlington.
There's pieces here and there, but nothing of substance, you know.
Yeah.
So that's why in the last, 5 to 10 years, what you've seen is rebuild,
Yeah.
in this community.
Oh,
So,
boy.
you take stuff that has, seen its useful life, which is 3rd Avenue, which is, the district,
Yep.
and all these areas, and trying to redo, those areas, and that's where, you bring it from Class C back up to Class A again.
Sure.
And that's why you see a lot of that going on. But there's just not a list of parcels out there. You
Yeah.
may have a few individual house lots, available here and there, but, putting in the big subdivision, is not happening.
So
in
we're
this
built
community.
out. We're pretty much built out.
Where, we have a high percentage of our land is built out.
Yeah, I wanted to change the subject just a little bit. Can you bring us up to date on 33 Center?
It's 33 Center, so maybe a little bit of history, for folks. So
Sure.
that's the old bank building right next to Town Hall. So we had bought that building several years ago, and the plan was to put the Board of Health and the Youth and Family Services into that building. We had gone to town meeting, had received an appropriation for it, and we put it out to bid, and the bids were just too high. So the selectmen said, let's rethink the plan, and because with that, if that was too high, Human Services building was going to be too high, and it was going to be outside the projected budget. So we redid. So that's what we brought to town meeting last year.
Right.
So town meeting approved the redo of 33 Center and Human Services. Once we got that funding, we redid the plans. So the plans are finished. We're going out to bid
Okay.
probably by the end of this month for that, and we'll be receiving our bids for both projects. So we're bidding it together as one project, and then the plan is to, by the end of this year, hopefully complete 33 Center Street, move Youth and Family Services to there, and then start the rehab of the sections of the Human Services building to give more space for programming for the Council
Over
on
there.
Aging.
Yeah.
So hopefully that will be done by next summer, I think, is kind of the time frame we're looking at. We'll know more once we get the bids in and work with the contractor on a real life schedule.
Go ahead.
So from experience, because right now I'm on the Station 2 committee with
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
and we'll get to that in a few minutes for the audience. But when you put it out to bid, are you going to build a committee within the town of?
No, because that's within, the departments are pretty set. So we
Okay.
work that through with selectmen, and that is a rehab, so
Okay.
it's not
Not a
building
huge
from scratch.
project.
It's not a huge project, and we don't have the availability to make decisions. The rooms are the rooms. So one of the things we did was everything's staying the same. We're not knocking down walls. We're not creating walls. What it was trying to make use of space for programming.
Okay.
And so we worked with the department heads, to do that. So it doesn't need a building committee in that sense.
So who will determine who gets hired, which project manager? Will there even be a project manager, or will it just be a contractor?
No, we have an architect and we have an OPM, just as we do
Okay.
on the other. And then we'll have, so there'll be the clerk of the works. The OPM provides the clerk of the works. And so that's all set to go. And so right now, John Sanchez as facilities, is working with me to oversee the project from the town perspective.
I have to just add that was my wife's question, because she goes to the COA twice, 3 times a week, and it's crowded. When are they going to?
Yeah.
And she has to answer. I will ask John tonight. Thank
So the
you.
idea is to create, again, 2 or 3 more programming spaces, within that building, so that, we can expand
Sure.
the use of the program.
Oh, it'll take a lot of pressure off the. And then you have some plans for the existing COA building, or is that? Are those
Well,
have been?
that's the same thing.
part
Yeah,
of the
that's
same
part
thing.
of that whole project. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. When I visited there, 33, that huge safe, is that going to be taken out?
No, so we'll take the door off. We'll take the inside portion out. But because of the redo, of this, we're not using as much space. We're trying to, we cut our costs, and one of them was not pulling that safe out.
Yeah.
So we'll use the space,
Sure.
but as is keeping those old concrete walls inside. So we'll remove the door.
No
from
chance
the
of
safe.
Burlington going in the banking business.
Potentially.
We're not looking to diversify at this time.
Yeah, we'd have to get some special legislation, and
The people upstairs have moved out already?
Yes, so they moved
It's-
out,
it's empty.
and that was great for the town, to have them up there.
Yeah.
Because they kept the building going. They paid, us rent,
Sure.
as well as paying the electricity and the heating costs, and kept the building when you shut down a building completely, it just hurts a building in doing that. So it was very good. So they just moved out January 1st.
Can you, perhaps the two of you, because I know you're on the subcommittee, can you tell us a little bit about what's happening with the intended new firehouse? Where do we stand on that issue? Is that?
Well, you're our guest, so I'll let you.
So town meeting appropriated a little over $8 million to tear down the current station at Terrace Hall and to rebuild a station on that property. So since then, we've hired a project manager, and we've hired an architect. So we have a meeting Thursday morning. So we're going to be reviewing the first cut of plans of how maybe the building could be situated on the lot. The lot's problematic. It's a difficult lot because it borders conservation.
Yeah.
It borders the aquifer,
Yep.
of town water, and there's not a lot of space to work with. And so we're trying to, so we're having the architects present to us what are some options. We had a visit 2 weeks ago. We went to a new station in North Andover by the same architects who designed. They gave us a tour, with the fire chief and the assistant town manager, who actually lives here in Burlington, Ray Santilli. And so Ray organized a tour for our group, and Adam was unable to make it, so he's coming in tomorrow. We're going up tomorrow to take a second look, so that he can, take a look at it and see the do's and don'ts. What did you do well? And actually, the station is the size we're looking for.
It's bigger, much bigger than what is there currently.
It'll be much bigger than what's there currently. So currently, the station houses 3 firefighters, and it can house temporarily more, but the station is, let me use a technical term, a dump. This time it's in difficult shape. It wasn't really built to be a 50-year station. At the time in the early 60s, concrete construction, cinder block construction. Right. So the new station will be a station where we can house 8 firefighters in the future, so that we can shift. Take a different look at how we house our firefighters. Right now we run 8 firefighters, 8 to 10 in the center station, and we run 3 in Station 2. We can take a look at redoing, running more in Station 2, house an ambulance there, maybe house a ladder there in the future, so that gives us all those options.
Has the fire chief, Chief Yetman, has he indicated that he's going to need new apparatus, new fire?
No, so the apparatus
can we manage with what we've got?
On the apparatus, yes. So we have a replacement plan. So we follow a replacement schedule. So since I've been here, we've purchased an engine, a brush truck, and we had to get a backup engine because one had failed on us. I don't know if you were around for that 3-4 years ago. So we rotate our pieces.
In other words, it's in the plans.
It's in the plan. So
it's not and all of a sudden.
We see all of this on capital budget. So when we do the capital budget,
yeah,
and we see the vehicle replacement plan.
Oh yeah, I did. Yes, I did. You're right.
So the project that we're working on right now in Station 2, that changes nothing that we
changes
see.
nothing for staffing.
Yeah.
And changes nothing for vehicle plan.
That was
all it is.
Just my question.
It's a building discussion.
Yeah.
So it gives us the capability of housing some of the stuff that we house outside right now. Maybe put it in a station.
Take better care of our equipment.
Take better care of our equipment. But it gives us the opportunity to relocate our personnel between the 2 stations versus right now we're restricted to housing only 3 in the second station.
Right. And now I remember the first meeting that we did on the subcommittee, one of the points that you drove home is This is not a substation this time. This is a
that's correct.
complementary.
Yeah.
This is a second.
They've kicked it out of my butt to not say substation, so
Okay.
that's why I say a second station, a station two. I've taken a few bruises on saying substation. We're not allowed to say that.
But we're
It
going
is-
to
it is
increase
a-
our capacity.
It's a fully operating station in a separate part of town.
Given all of the construction, I'm thinking in terms of the district in particular, this should be more than enough, not more than enough, it should be enough to cover all of the turnpike and the district and.
So there's been talk in the past where maybe we could be 3-station town, but we're, right now 2-station is adequate, for what we do. And the location, we had bought the Clock and Read, to try to get the station a little bit closer. But with everything else we need to do, the overall plan says, let's keep the station where we are. Is it the most ideal spot? No, but it's a workable spot, where it's at. So that's the discussion we had, I think, 2 years ago, and last year when we came back and said, let's replace Station 2, in the same spot versus putting it on Clock and
Especially
Read.
since it's so close to the turnpike.
It is, so it works.
In any direction, I would imagine. So that's great. That's part of the stuff that Burlington needs. Looking at back at we talked a little bit about the canyon. Is there any more land there that can be used by, or can be, can someone come in? I don't know.
So my understanding is that no. So what happened is in order to get the approval for these lots, they used the space in what was the canyon to make this building possible. So there's an agreement between the planning board and Gutierrez that this is what's being built in that location. So unless they came back to the town's controls are in place for that's what's being built. Now, other things are going to be built in the front, more on the turnpike where the old Hertz was. There's
they're
obviously
already
We
working
voted
on
in town
that,
meeting
yeah.
not too long ago to rezone
exactly.
that area.
So other things are happening along the turnpike. But as far as where Millipore is going, the building that's being built today is taking up the rest of that space allowable on the hill.
So there won't be anything else, no other surprises going in there.
Not to anybody's knowledge today.
Yeah.
What happens down the road would need, town meeting approvals if something were to happen. But under today's, I always try to be careful to say forever and ever. No, that
You don't want
doesn't
to
work.
speak in absolutes.
Exactly. But, under the current restrictions, that's what's being built.
You've been here 5 years. You've seen the ins and outs. You know every bit of the area.
Mhm.
Do we have the best form of government in Burlington? Which is probably a tough question.
Yeah, because that's not, I answer questions as to, could we get more efficiencies in places? Yes. But it's not for me to lead the discussion, be part of the discussion as to the form of government.
That's fair enough.
I think that crosses, we're talking before the show about I try not to cross lines in certain areas, and I think that's not my discussion to have. I could offer an opinion to, some folks if it was a committee and put some things on the table and bring some other people to have discussions. There used to be a state person who did this. She retired and they don't no longer do that. But there's other resources to look at that. So it is our government.
I think what I was trying to get at was, you see what we have as working well, fairly well. I mean, it's never going to be 100%.
I mean, we got a great government here, a great operation. So
Why do you say great?
The people.
Okay.
So our staff, and I'm, I think I say this at town meeting every year at the annual, and I try to, give credit to the department heads and the staff we have. I'm impressed. Every day I stay impressed, and it's hard to impress me at that level because I've been in other organizations, but I'm very impressed with the people who work for this community. We've got, a great staff up and down, in the various departments who are extremely knowledgeable. We were talking about a few of the people, prior to, getting going tonight. And, when you look at the department heads, when you look at in almost every department, and especially the senior department heads of the larger departments, police, fire, public works, accounting, and so on. These people, I would not trade, them for anybody, so it's a great team to work with. And, to this day, every time I see Bob Mercia, one thing I say to him is, thank you for leaving me the people you left, and it is a great team. And then, the people at the staff level, they care. I mean, it's, I don't see that every place. To some people, it's a job. Here, it is the belief that we want to do what's right, for this community. And people are always trying to find a better way to do things, within the staff. And it really is a wonderful group of people, that work for this community.
Good. We talked a little bit earlier about the master plan. And just wondering, do an evaluation of, the value. I know it's mandated. I think it's every 10 years,
20.
is it? Or,
I think it's 20 years by state law, yeah.
Yeah. But you think it's a good idea?
It's always a good idea to have a strategic plan for any organization. So no matter what business you're in, you want to be able to look 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. And so, yes, I think it's absolutely necessary. I think any management book you read is going to tell you, you need to have a vision, of where you want to be. You can't just, talk in terms of where we are today. You need to understand your past. That's a history piece,
Yep.
We like our history for various reasons, and one is know where you've been, know where you are,
Where
you
you're
need to know where
going.
you're going.
Yeah.
And so the strategic planning is, critical for that.
Yeah. 19 and a half. We're hoping, by the way, to have one of the Duffy people
Oh, yeah,
on
yeah.
later on. He's agreed to come on later, probably in March, maybe April. I saw activity out there yesterday, I think it was. I
So
don't know,
they're
is that-
planning right now. So they are getting their approvals. So some of it, I think, what you were seeing was them doing test holes, or So they are working with Public Works now for the entrance areas.
Yeah.
How to blend in with the town property into the new property. So in that area. So that's a discussion. They're on the selectmen's agenda for the 13th
Oh,
for earth permits,
Okay.
on moving, earth back and forth and so on. So you need permits for that. So that is moving forward. They got their planning board approvals, is my understanding. So they have that. So now they're getting their other individual permits to be able to actually put you start digging in the ground and constructing.
I've been here in Burlington for a long time, I think I mentioned to you. And it always, as I think back to some of the businesses that were located on the hill, and of course 19 and a half,
Sure.
before that at one time there was a big grocery store
Grocery
there.
store, yeah.
Yeah, before.
Independence.
And then, yeah,
That was
19
before
and a
me.
half. Yeah. They even had a Kemp's hamburger stand on the hill.
I like
at one
hamburgers.
time. It didn't last very long. But anyway, do you think 19 and a half, yeah, I think that's one of the shortcomings of Burlington that I see, and that is that the government is up at the top of the hill, and you've got pretty good business at the bottom. So somehow you have to tie them together, ideally. And I know that the master plan talked about even possibility of gas lights and brick sidewalks on the side to give it a certain flavor.
We had John Saxon here with Christine Brown to
Yeah.
talk about the sculpture park at one
Right.
point, and
So
Yeah.
that's I think the planning board looked at those aspects, so I can't get into the detail. I'm not familiar with the
yeah,
Yeah.
details of the plans, but I know John Sanchez was talking to me this week about the bank and sidewalks, and so I believe they've tried to, it's not just a bituminous sidewalk. It is looking at a sidewalk with some character to it.
okay.
Right.
To blend in, that portion of the road.
Yeah.
So I think, that's trying to be get
But
done.
I get the feeling that 19 and a half, I can't quite envision exactly what they're going to do. I've heard some comments, some little bit of a description, but I think it will go a long way if they have some sort of a center a common area. I think it'll go a long way to connecting the top and the bottom.
I'm not sure what you mean by common area. So, it's going to
you
be.
know, Wayside has,
Sure.
they have
The
benches.
gazebo in
and
the
a little-
middle.
there's a- yeah,
Yeah, I'm
maybe
not
a-
sure they're going to have that here. I think there's a separation between the residences there and the two commercial buildings. So again, I'm not familiar, with the details of the plan.
Yeah.
I can't remember it offhand to, to state
Well, the
yes
reason
or
I
no
bring
to
it
that.
up is it just, I'm hoping that whatever they do, and I know it will to some extent, and that is join the top with the bottom.
It will definitely bring it together because right now it's just a giant dead zone between the common
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
And
you,
then
you want at least a view,
Yes.
because it's a tough walk. That hill is a difficult, hill, but you do want that visual view coming down the hill with the new
Yes.
bank that's going to go in
Yep.
with that, and so you're seeing that view. Or when you're coming up the hill, you're saying, "Wow, that looks pretty nice."
Yeah.
Coming up that hill, and then as you round the top of the hill, then you got the common, the beautiful area of the common and the center.
It's looking good. Do you feel you said you feel good about Burlington? You as you look down, I mean, you have, you see what's going on with all the departments, and you're aware of it. I don't know how much more growth we can see in town in terms of population. Are we pretty much at
Yeah,
this?
I think the population, will be a factor of how many people are in the houses, versus, building new subdivisions. So, we've been at 25,000. We're in that range. I can see us growing to 27 to 28, but it's not going to be a 40 or 50,000, person community.
Yeah.
So I think staying within that 25 to, 28 range is probably what you're looking at, moving down the road.
Do you dare estimate how far away are we for a new high school?
A long way away.
A long way?
Yeah, because the issue is financial.
Sure.
The second is there truly a need? So what we're doing now is selectmen at their last meeting signed off on the request to upgrade the high school, which is with HVAC and certain wings of the high school to upgrade some classrooms. I believe that's in the plan for like $40 million total, and to do some upgrades to the high school. But a high school these days is running close to $175 million to build a new high school. I mean, that's the average now, what's going on. So for us to build a new high school, means someone's got to come up with some money
Right.
for that. So if the town wants that, that's an option. But, taxes can't stay the same, in looking at that. And we still have these other needs. Public Works, police station, people talk about the police station, Public Works garage, elementary schools. I mean, you're looking at elementary schools, to take a look at as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's, there are wants and there are possibilities. And I don't see a high school as, in the near future.
Are there
for
solar
that.
panels on the roof of the high school? Because I remember we voted on.
Yeah,
that.
they've been working on that. No, there are not at
Okay.
this point. The Solar Hope solar program kind of, I don't know if you saw a lot of articles recently, the last year or two, of, whether, the incentives were there or not.
Yes.
And so that kind of slowed down, that project. But the school is still working with a consultant, and I'm not sure, you'd have to check with Dr. Conti or Mr. Robinson as to, the status of that.
Is there anything? Is there such thing as a typical day in your job?
No. So, I mean, there are typical things I get to do, but on any given day, anything can turn it around.
Okay.
As to, I get that call, hey, this has happened, or, I deal with personnel issues, so if I get that, that call, hey, this just happened with, with one of our employees, now I'm involved, I become involved with that. So there are typical seasons.
Okay.
There are typical things I got to get done, within that season. But any day is quite different. That's what I love about my job. I'm not coming in and, doing the same thing at 9 o'clock every day or at 3 o'clock every day. Every day is different, but things throw off the day constantly. So I know I've got my meeting schedule. So last night I had selectmen, tonight I'm here, and I've got all my meeting schedules, so those don't change. But, you know, that 9 o'clock in the morning, you know, or you know, I get the call on the way into work, you know, saying, hey, you know, this is happening, you know. We've had, a water pipe break or whatever. You know, those are things you address as it's happening, and you blend it in with everything else you do.
Right. Okay.
My mother, when I told her that we were going to be building in Burlington, she said, "That's like the frontier."
Yeah. So from the
Honest to God.
Boston area, right?
Medford, Malden,
Yeah,
Medford.
yeah.
And she actually paused, you know, where is it exactly? You probably have heard this time and time again, that is that the taxes have gone up a tiny bit over the past
Taxes
6,
always go
7
up.
years. They always go up, I know. In your estimation, in your overall view, how do we fare in terms of, you know, with the other communities around?
So we in the last 3 years, we've put together a review, so a town comparison. We've taken 14 communities, you know, that are our neighbors and neighbors out, you know. So we did, those communities, and we show that, you know, and we're in very good shape, you know, in this town. So when you look at the average tax bill, we're in very good shape. It's all relative. It's where do you want to be. So I always, you know, you've probably heard me say this, when we talk about taxes, I don't talk about taxes first. I always turn the question around, well, what do you want for services? You know, because services drives the taxes. Taxes don't drive the services. So what do you want for services? And then we can figure out the tax base from there. Burlington's in a very good position. So, you know, when I talk to my fellow town managers, you know, and talk to them about where we are, they don't even want to talk to me anymore, you know, because the numbers I cite to them, they just sit there and, you know, towns are still laying off in places. Towns are doing Prop 2.5 overrides. We've never done a Proposition 2.5 override or exemption, exclusion of any type in this community. Never, don't need to.
Yep.
All our debt is within. People don't realize it, but taxes subsidize water and sewer in this town.
Yes.
Most other towns, water and sewer is an enterprise account, and it fully funds itself so that it's not on the tax rate. Otherwise, you'd have to be cutting positions. So look at, you know, you have that survey, and, you know, you two as members of various committees have seen that. It's handed out to town meeting, and you can see where Burlington is. There's only 2 communities that truly compete with us when you look at the raw numbers. That's Billerica and Woburn. Okay, so which of those communities do you want to live in? Everybody in Burlington is going to say in Burlington.
Absolutely.
You look at the level of services, you know, that are provided here. You just look at the various pieces. Billerica does better because of state aid. State aid is is a real problem in the state, has been for a long time, and it's not going to get changed. But Billerica gets 2.5 times to 3 times more than we get on state aid.
Wow.
So we're at $9 million approximately in state aid. Billerica was over $25 million, if I remember right. So
what would be the reason for that?
The way they did it back 50 years ago, and what's happened is rates were set back then, and what they do every year is they incrementally add to your state aid on a year-to-year basis for students and for general increases. So everybody gets, this year the governor has proposed on the unrestricted aid 4% across the board. So we're all getting 4%, and $20 per student on this Chapter 70 aid. So that just gets added on incrementally. Nobody looks back to see whether population has changed in any community. You know, what is the basis? So we don't reset the basis of state aid because you'll never get the votes to do that. So that's a whole nother discussion. And then Woburn, you know, competes with us too, and they got a very good tax base, you know, and it's a city, you know, where, you know, they've had that big tax base for years. And then you look at their services, you know, so, you know, do we do a better job in Burlington for services?
Yeah, we do.
You know, so you
definitely
take
do.
a look at that. So
Yeah.
when you look at those, you know, that information, if you looked at this past weekend on Sunday in the Boston Globe, if you looked at the North edition, the suburb editions they put out, there was an article about increases. Burlington was the only community in this area that had a less than 2% increase on the single-family average tax bill. We were 1.82% this past year.
This was
Winchester.
this past Sunday's paper?
Yeah, it was in past Sunday. So in the North Edition, you can go online and see it. I've printed it out for Ways and Means and for for folks to see. But Burlington was 1.82% increase. Woburn was 5% last year.
Wow.
Winchester was Joan will know, having
Astronomical.
escaped, was 9% increase.
Oh my God.
So
Oh,
we don't have that here.
yeah.
So when you look at these pieces, and then when you add on to the fact we don't have fees, so we don't have a trash fee,
Yeah.
we don't have a bus fee, athletic fee. So you've seen you've seen that data.
Yeah.
We're in great shape here.
Yeah.
So we're in very good financial shape. So so when I look at it, this is a great place to take a look at these things. And people, we've increased taxes less than 2% the last 2 years
Yeah.
to the average single family, and that's because of the commercial sales. We're still increasing our budget by 4%, but the commercial's taken, the brunt of that.
Speaking about the commercial, with regard to them and the what they pay into the tax base, there's very little more growth to be had. I think part of, I'm not sure, I'm questioning, part of the advantage we've had with regard to the commercial contribution has been the fact that it's been growing. We've had new businesses and there are a lot more money coming in from them. I think we've reached a plateau.
We haven't, not yet. In a
Think
few
so?
years we may, but we got Millipore coming online. We still got
Yeah.
parts of 3rd Avenue. So you got 2 new hotels being built in town. You have the Lifetime Fitness being built, the District. So they added on, the 11-story building, the old bank building there. I don't know if you've seen that big new addition. This is all coming online in the next couple of years. The question is going to be 3, 4, 5 years down the road.
Yeah, I guess that's what.
So coming in, is what's going to be, pushing at that point, and that's where the growth in the residential tax may get closer to the commercial side.
Right.
But right now you're below 2%.
We still have a way to go.
Still
That's
have a
great.
ways to
That's
go.
good news.
And we still have that overlay district that we recently approved at town meeting where we approved we're going to petition the state for some additional liquor licenses.
Exactly, in the center.
Some
So I think
mom-and-pop
that's maybe
restaurants.
that's smaller growth. I think because you're talking, this is a way of
Right.
life section versus a truly economic development.
Okay.
So I don't think you'll see huge differences in taxation, from that.
Okay.
What I think you'll see is more services to the actual residents here,
Nice.
versus the regional, group. And I think that's what's being sought after here is more mom and pop style, businesses in that
But
part of
19
town.
and a half is they're planning some retail units, aren't they?
Yes, so they have 2 buildings, so they're looking for a restaurant.
I think
that
that's
will,
an ideal spot. I almost want to take it myself. If I was a
Sure.
little younger, I would. The one out front there.
You'd get in trouble again with the wife if you started that
I know
again.
that. I know
So-
that. I'm in trouble anyway. So.
Yeah. But yeah,
Um,
so looking at those, but so it's where you want to be. As I always say, $1 of tax is too much for the average citizen when I talk to them. So that's why I always turn around the discussion is, well, what do you want for your services? I can cut your taxes, but you have to tell me what we're going to cut for the services to do that. We got great services in the town. I mean, the recreation, in this town, for the kids, the schools, all the
there is.
programs we've implemented here, across the board. And the commercial side really takes up police, fire, and public works. They don't take up much of the other, type services.
Sure.
Schools, recreation, library, those type things are, for the citizens of town.
I remember when Amy Warfield,
Mhm.
she had requested monies to implement a new system.
It was a software system.
What was it?
It was a software system.
Software system,
Consolidate
yeah.
to take
Yeah,
a look at. Yep.
to connect different, and I'm not
Departments.
sure, as a matter of fact, I wanted to see her yesterday. I wanted to, she was out, I didn't get a chance to talk to her.
Right.
I'm not sure of exactly where they are with that, and I was just wondering how you feel about it.
So we had a meeting on that 3 weeks ago, give or take, with planning director, building inspector, IT, her, myself. I think that was the group. And so we've got some upcoming demos, to review everything. So it's finding the right system.
Gotcha.
You know, there's one company out there who bought out another company, which is the company we use in the building inspector side. So we have some of this in place. The question now is getting other departments to buy into it. So we have this, you know, being reviewed at this point.
But this is, as I understand, it's modules that are going to be
Sure.
added on, the basic system, and then they add.
We have some of those modules now. So the
Okay.
building inspector uses that system now.
Okay.
The question is tying in other departments
Yeah.
to it. So that's what's being reviewed.
And is it my understanding that it will extend to the point where the general public can
Well, you can do-
eventually, I mean,
You
they-
can do that now on the building side. You can go online and apply for your permits.
Oh, you
Um,
can?
and
Oh, I
yes.
didn't know that.
Yeah, so that's the system. It's the same company we're looking at, and we're looking at the other companies too. The problem is, you know, when you switch over a computer system of that nature,
Yeah.
you got to get everybody's commitment, and it's timing, and so that's why we've got all these folks taking a look at it. So
You seem to be very happy with your job.
I love what I do.
And that's essentially because of the nature of the town, the people in the town, and the people that you work with. Is that a true statement?
It keeps me happy, yes. So you know, this is my job. It's my profession. It's my avocation. I believe, you know, so when you believe in something, you know, and you know, I think that's the great part about government. You have a belief system to go with the job. It's not just sales. It's not just, you know, and you can have belief systems with that too. You need to enjoy what you do. And I just believe in you know, in what we do. I believe in government. I believe in municipal government. I believe in democracy, and this is its purest form at this level. Going before you, 126.
I was
You
going to
know,
say that.
3
That's gonna be
times
one
a
of the,
year.
That's going to be 3 of the most stressful nights of your year.
My interesting nights. You
Okay.
know, so yeah, those are
Politically correct way to answer the question.
3. You know, and there are, you know, there's been a couple of times in my career I've left saying, "What the heck am I doing with my life?" But I also feel that, you know, when I get that call, you know, from a citizen saying, "Hey, thank you. This is what, you know, your people did, you know, for us." That's a great feeling too. So there's that side of it. So that's why I call it an avocation of, you know, you know, of what we do. So it's you know, I believe in our system. So it's hard. It's gotten harder, I think.
That was my next question.
It's gotten harder.
Complicated.
It's gotten complicated. Not so much the techniques, but the attitudes, you know,
Yeah.
have gotten more complicated, I think, over the last 10 years. You know, the belief, let's yell first versus let's ask first. I find that difficult, you know, so is it stressful, more stressful? Yes, I have to admit, it's more stressful, and I think a lot of, you know, the department heads will tell you, yeah, it's not what it used to be to some extent, because attitudes, and I can't be Walmart. I can't say, "Oh, we made a mistake. Here's $10 gift card. You know, you please stay with us." No, if I do for one, I've got to do for 25,000 others, and that's the thing I always have to stress. No, I can't make an exception, because if I make one exception, I got to be able to make that exception 25,000 times.
Sure.
But you know, so you know, I love what I do, but
It
it's
is stressful.
interesting.
One observation when I watch you up there at town meeting, and I've told you in private that, John, I feel bad for you sometimes, man. But the whole thing is that it's really a situation of don't shoot the messenger.
Well,
You're not truly the policymaker. You're the policy administrator.
right.
So people get mad about the policy.
Sometimes, you know, and people say, you know, will say, "Well, you're in charge." Well, only if they want me to be, you know. So it's like, you know, I say that to an employee sometimes. No, I'm only in charge when you let me be, you know. But when you don't like what's going on, then, you know, the pushback occurs. And yes, I'm up there making a statement, but it's for my selectmen. It's for the Ways and Means. It's for the capital plan. It's for everybody else. And sometimes town meeting forgets that this has been discussed, you know, 6 different nights.
We do go back to
yeah.
similar themes.
You know, on those things, and that's frustrating sometimes. That wait a minute, if Ways and Means has recommended this, you know, 12 to 1, and capital plans recommended it 6 to 1. Why are you forgetting that aspect? that it's been reviewed and there's a recommendation, and, so yeah, that gets, that's the tiring part.
I can imagine.
But I got to stand up there and keep the smile on the face.
do a good
and
job.
I
You,
just gotta
definitely.
you really do.
Because
I
they
have,
come and fight.
I have to admire, I've seen some of the comments from some of the people that are, they're frustrated about one thing or another, but you can tell their view is narrow. But you get up there, and I see you take that microphone, sometimes a little reluctantly, but you do it, and you do the best you can. Even, very cool, and I commend you for it.
Thank you.
You really do a good job.
An interesting dynamic is, even though you don't set the policy, a lot of times one thing that I've noticed from being on the station committee is you do serve in the role of consultant, because, for example, I'm on the building. I know nothing about building a bill. I've never gone through the bidding process.
Sure.
But you've been sort of a guiding hand for the entire committee. Because I think for many of us on that building committee, it's the first time that we've been involved in building the creation of a
Right.
building of that scope. So, I mean, I know you it's funny because, you're kind of stuck with us. We got elected to the position. Here we are. You're stuck with us, John.
At times stuck, yes, and at times it's a joy.
Right. Ultimately, you serve the community,
Right.
which we're tasked with helping create some of the policy. But at the same time, we look to you for, John, are we doing this right?
So I'm a trainer.
Okay.
I see my job as being a trainer. And a lot of times it's, we used to have the green books, the law books. Now it's all online. But I always used to point. The green books say, you can't do this, and I can't tell you how many selectmen have been elected without fully understanding. So when a selectman gets elected, the first thing I do is I give them a handbook. There is a Massachusetts selectman, handbook that's been written. I say, please read this. And this will tell you, what you can do and you can't do. Because a lot of things you're going to, say to me in your first year, I'm going to say, well, you can't do that by law. So, we're so constricted by what we can do.
Yeah.
It's from, issuing liquor licenses. If we want to issue a liquor license, well, we can't, unless it's an approved license. And that's why we went to town meeting, and now it's at the legislature to get more approval. Everything is tied to, a section of law. And in Massachusetts, it has to be permissive. So in other parts of the state, country, some communities in other states have rights. In Massachusetts, we have no rights. The legislature tomorrow can vote to abolish the town of Burlington.
You're kidding.
No. So we are a
They have that
subdivision.
kind of
Typical
power?
Massachusetts.
They have that power. So the town of Massachusetts, town of Burlington was created through a petition to the legislature,
the state,
the state, and we operate under the Massachusetts Constitution. There's nothing about rights for individual communities. So that's why we need to be, everything we do has to be permissive. So when we look at it, when I talk to council about something, council will say, well, there's nothing in general law that allows you to do that. General law gives us rights to do certain things, like bonding. Very simple. When we bonded the police station, we can only bond it for 20 years. But I can bond a water line for 40 years. General law says you can bond for 20 years on a building. So the fire station was 20 years. But, for other things, it's 10 years. So I have to go to general law and see what is the permissive section to allow me to do something.
Wow, I had no idea it was that restrictive.
So that's why we're always saying at town meeting,
So,
can't do that, or bidding and all the, we have to do everything in accordance with some aspect of general law.
so we're simply a vassal of the state.
Pretty-
Some
Well,
way you-
that's a strong word, but yes, in some aspects, I always have to find the reason why I can do this rather than why we can't. If you want to change the government in this town, there's different ways to do it. But, right now, we did it by asking the state for special legislation. So
Right.
we act under a special act that was approved by the state. The town didn't approve that. The town approved it up front, but the state had to then approve the town's action. Same with the liquor licenses.
that's
So you got to think about it that way, is
yeah.
that we are subject to, rules on all other areas.
I'm sorry, what did you?
But no, just to harken back to what he said, I know just from being on the building committee that there's times where I've asked you, I said, John, if we bring someone back if we choose that that's who we want to hire as the project manager,
Yeah,
for
sure.
example, then we negotiate the contract with them, and if we don't like what they come back to us with, we can't go to our second favorite.
Well, that we could because the law allows us to do. So we
Okay.
chose, that was an RFP versus a bid.
Okay.
But when we go to the actual building, no, we're going to have to choose the lowest bid.
Right. Okay.
And that's why they always talk about, would you want to have your thing built by the lowest bidder?
Right,
you
right.
know, in life, have, the lowest bidder, do your heart surgery or,
Right.
those type things.
But the
And
constraints
that's
that we
what
work
we do.
around are head scratching in some ways.
It
but,
absolutely is.
but that's where you come into it, and that's why I say.
And that's
with
why
project
I
like
always have to, fall back too when we have discussions, even at town meeting. Can't do that. Questions are asked. No, we can't do it that way.
I think most people don't realize that.
And it falls back to, we have to find the section of law or rule or whatever that allows us to do that. It's not common sense in what we do.
Very interesting. I didn't. That's another whole aspect of, and I've heard you say it in town meeting, but I never quite realized that we were under that kind of restriction. I'm just wondering, the building that's going up on the corner of 3rd Ave, is it a hotel or
That's the hotel across from Bancroft Steakhouse.
Yeah.
That's the hotel, and the name's it's a boutique
Yeah.
hotel, so the name's skipping me. They've got
It's a small
some
one, evidently. I mean,
it's a small. They've got 4 or 5 of them right now in, I think, Houston, New York, San Francisco, and they're building in Redmond. I was looking at it online not too
Wow.
long ago. Redmond and Burlington. So I forget the name.
pretty
of it now.
high-profile communities that they're
Yeah,
in.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
We're now amongst that elite group.
Well, you look at some of our restaurants in this town.
It's come a long way.
and you look at the high level of restaurants we have, here. So
I agree. Go ahead, Pat.
I'm just looking at the
Got
time.
about a minute.
We've got just very little time. Okay, I think we've covered a lot of territory, and I essentially want to say thank you very much for joining us, and I'm sure that those who are watching have learned. I've learned a little bit, and
Sure. That's my pleasure. I always like talking about what we do as a community, and
you enjoy your work, and it shows. It really does. I mean, in so many different ways, and you've made a great case.
In front of the camera shows behind my desk some days. There are times it might not be showing.
Driving home, I can imagine.
Yeah.
No, thank you ever so
Sure.
much. And I just want to mention to the audience out there that, as I had indicated earlier, we're going to have some people on that I think you'd be very interested in hearing from. One is the current retiring selectman, Dan Grattan, is going to be joining us. Perhaps, I think, in the next show. John Sanchez, the, what's his official?
Public Works Director.
Public Works, he is going to be joining us. And Kristen Kastner, who is going to be talking about the master plan that John was talking about earlier. I'm hoping that she will join us at some point
We're
in the
running
near
out of time.
future. And I'm also anticipating Kevin Duffy from the 19 and a half. He's been sort of putting me off, but I think he has agreed to come on the show. The dates for these people we will put together and let you know at the next show. I just want to say thank you once
Thanks, John.
again, too.
Sure
I think
thing.
we're pretty much out of time. Do you want to say anything to the
No,
audience? Bill?
that's great.
You want to say anything?
Good night.
Yeah.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
joining us.
Thanks for joining us. Yes. Thanks, John, so
Sure thing.
much. You really